Hey guys, Tommy with Elevation Every Weekend here. In today's video, we're going to do the long promised update video with the Mongoose Dolomite, the so-called Walmart or Amazon fat bike. I did do a video on this bike a few months back, so I will link that down in the description below. But in essence, I explained that while I did feel that this bike does have some pretty severe limitations, I didn't feel it was correct to completely discount it as an option, especially for those who are on a tight budget or may already own this bike. And one of the things I said I would want to do with this bike is actually try to cut some weight from it and do a couple upgrades to it and see how much lower I could get the weight of the bike, and more importantly, how much better I could get it to perform. So I'm just going to run you through real quick what my plans are today in this video as far as the changes. So first of all, I'm just going to remove any of the unnecessary items. So there's a number of reflectors on this bike. I'm going to remove all of those. This bike actually does have a kickstand, so I am going to take that off. The main change though that should probably yield the biggest difference in this bike's total weight and especially the performance is I'm going to swap out the tires. So these tires are extremely heavy wire bead no name tires, and I'm going to swap on a much better set of Surly Nate 120 TPI folding bead tires that came off the Surly Pugs Ops. So that change alone should make a significant difference in how the bike performs. I also see that this bike has some Schrader valve tubes in it. Once I get in there, if those tubes seem excessively heavy, I will go ahead and try to swap in a set of my Press the Valve fat bike tubes and maybe even save a little more weight. And if you're not really familiar, just to clarify, it's not just the total weight that we're worried about, but saving weight in the rolling mass has an exponential benefit. So that's why the tires and potentially the tubes as well would be the biggest benefit possible. And one thing I was planning to change, but I'm not going to unfortunately, are the handlebars. So these are steel handlebars, and I'm sure they're extremely heavy. I had intended to swap on a set of my aluminum salsa bars that also came off the Surly Pugs, but unfortunately, because of the size of the stem, that's not going to be compatible, and I'm not going to go buy a stem right now just to make that happen. So no, if you do have this bike, you could invest a little bit of money in a different stem and a better set of handlebars and probably have a significant improvement just in lightening up the front end and the steering of the bike. So before I get to any of the actual changes, I'm going to go ahead and put the bike on the scale so we can get a baseline weight as is, and then after all the changes are done, I'm going to put it back on the scale and we'll see what we gained as far as the dead weight of the bike. Okay, the bike is suspended on the scale, and right now we're sitting at just over 46 pounds. So I'm going to go ahead and take it down and we're going to get to the changes. Okay guys, there she is. Looks a lot cleaner with all those reflectors on it, and the kickstand's gone. It's a little more aggressive and purposefully ready for action with these better tires on it. I will say that I've never had a set of tires fall off and essentially fall on as easy as these did, even on other fat bikes. So, you know, these wheels are not high quality in that standpoint as far as really holding the bead, but certainly would not be an option for tubeless, I don't think. It was definitely easy to get the old ones off and the new ones on. So next up, we're gonna get it on the scale and see what the dead weight of the bike is at. All right guys, moment of truth, the bike is hanging. Let's see what we got. Looks like a pretty significant drop. Looks like almost exactly a 5-pound drop. Pretty big difference. Now, 41 pounds is still extremely heavy for any bike, even a fat bike, but losing 5 pounds is a big deal. And I suspect losing it in the tires, like I was saying earlier, that rotational weight it's probably going to ride much better than it did in the past. I did mention possibly swapping out the Schrader valve tubes. They're by no means lightweight, but at the same time, I did notice that they were drastically heavier than the Presta valve tubes I have. But these tubes here seem fairly common for standard fat bike tubes. So I just went ahead and reused them and put them right back in. So this weekend, I'm excited to get this bike out and see how it feels. And we actually have snow falling, so I might actually be able to get it out in the snow and really give it a proper fat bike test. So stay tuned, because next up, we're gonna get it out and ride it. Okay guys, doing a voiceover on this because it was pretty windy and I didn't want that in the microphone. We did get about 8 inches of snow, so it was a great opportunity to test out the altered setup in the snow. As you can see here, the bike actually was able to cut right through some unpacked snow and fresh powder. I was actually pretty surprised it did not get bogged down at all. I can say that even riding in the resistance of the snow, the tire swap and the weight savings were a drastic improvement. Riding on a bit more of a packed snow base, the bike again felt surprisingly good. I will add a few observations though. These wheels appear to be a full 100 millimeters wide, and a 4-inch tire is just too small for them. And this is actually what did come on the bike, was a 4-inch wide tire. Even with the wide wheels, I can't recommend going with larger tires because it would just add back to the weight of the bike. And frankly, there's not much frame clearance in the rear triangle for much more than, I'd say, a 4.3-inch tire. So as a result, while I did air down a fair amount, the profile of the tire was a bit distorted, so I did not air down as much as I would have had the wheel width and tire size been a better match. So as a result, while the traction was adequate, the ride was a bit rough over the lumpy foot trafficked trail because the pressure was slightly higher than I would have preferred. And the profile of the tire just didn't give that squish that I would normally want. On this flat terrain, even in the resistance of the snow, the limited 1x8 gearing was adequate, but I was in the biggest rear cog, which is the easiest gear for the entire ride. So the main takeaway is that it's okay on flat terrain, but I would not use this for hilly terrain, and certainly not up in the big mountains of Colorado, as you just wouldn't have any more gear left to assist with climbing. The brakes are poor when dry and even worse when wet, but they were okay at low speeds on flat terrain for this ride. So in the end, the bike was a pleasant surprise in the snow with a good, lighter set of tires. It would be fine for use around the neighborhood in snow or local flat terrain that has a good base, but I can't recommend it for more variable backcountry type conditions. So just to wrap up, this ended up being a more successful endeavor than I had expected. Even with the relatively minor changes I made, the 5-pound weight saving was quite a shock. And as a result, the bike actually performed fairly well in a real-world snow test, much better than I thought it would. So if you were someone that has this bike right now, investing a little money in a few more changes could make it even better. And if you're someone that has parts available, as I did, I had the tires sitting on the sideline, be even more viable. All right guys, that wraps up today's video. Pleasantly surprised by the results as far as the weight reduction on the Mongoose. And also, as you saw, and as I said in the video regarding the snow performance, I was pleasantly surprised by that as well. If you found the video useful or helpful, definitely drop a like down below. Any questions or comments, drop those down below as well. And if you're enjoying the content I've been bringing you, please subscribe to the channel. It does really help out the channel. It lets YouTube know you want to continue seeing this kind of content. Now that the snow is here, lots more to come this winter with the fat bike, so definitely stay tuned. Thanks a lot and have a great day.